And that's the way I feel about business. Like if you're building businesses that you really enjoy, that create good in the world, it's just like, what an amazing thing to be able to spend your life doing.
I'm Amy Jo Martin. Welcome to the Why Not Now show. You know that thing you've been thinking about doing? Yeah, that one. Why not now? Have you ever actually taken the time to ask yourself, what's stopping me? Let's talk it through. This is your chance to give that idea the attention it deserves and take action. Each episode, I have a chat with a fascinating person, from entrepreneurs to athletes, celebrities, my parents, rocket scientists, and all walks of life. We talk through a critical time when they've asked themselves, why not now? We dissect that day or even that moment, step by step.
Just let go.
Nick Taranto is on the show today, and Nick is the co-founder of Plated, a meal delivery service that you may be familiar with. They sold to Albertsons for a couple $100 million a few years ago. He is an entrepreneur at the heart. He has a new company called Hop Water, which I'm a fan of, which we'll talk a little bit about. But what I really appreciate about Nick is that he was very honest about how this all started with Plated. And we tend to romanticize stories at times about entrepreneurship, especially ones that end in big exits. But he was genuine and real when it came to talking about the very beginning and how this all started. I talk a lot about adversity being an asset. It's one of the renegade rules, leveraging adversity. Well, Nick definitely did that. He had a fancy job in New York City and quite a decorated past and career prior to that. And one day he was asked to leave because his boss had found something on the printer that indicated he was working on building his own company, kind of this side hustle. Of course, that was not the plan in terms of the transition or the way that he ended up leaning into Plated. But he talks about that moment and what happened when he left the building, when he was let go and he had that, oh shit moment, and what that was like, how hard that was, how hard it was for some time after. They didn't necessarily start kicking goals right away. And that's the reality of most situations. Nick talks about how he realized he had to become internally motivated because entrepreneurs oftentimes don't have external motivation. So learning to find that from within yourself is a huge asset that can be leveraged. I have a ton of respect for Nick, and I think you'll really enjoy the tangible, tactical tips and things that he shares about how he does navigate from idea to action. He's a pro. His operational mind is unmatched, and I hope you enjoy the show. Also, quick heads up, our summer Renegade Accelerator enrollment will be opening soon. So please head to renegadeaccelerator.com, check out what we have going on. You can check out case studies and also sign up for more information and get our emails. You can be the first to know when we finally do open up enrollment, which is right around the corner. And I encourage you to watch the video of our Renegade graduates who have been through the program and leveled up their results and how they've learned to 10x their thinking and execution. Head to renegadeaccelerator.com. Guiding renegades down those black diamond mountains of business and life is the career love of my life, and I'd love to work with you if you feel like this might be a good fit. So sign up for more info and we can explore that together. Nick, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining me. And in the spirit of why not now, can you tell me about a time when you had a big decision to make and you had to ask yourself, why not now? We'll dissect that day, season, minute, hour, and really figure out how you went from idea to action.
Yeah, absolutely. Amy, good to be here with you. And thanks for having me on. I think I've had a lot of these experiences over my life, actually, ranging from a lot of these why not now experiences. A lot of them come back to, let me give you the first one, and then I'll give you one that's maybe more relevant for your audience in a second. My first why not now experience was when I was 14, and I had good family friends that unfortunately passed away very suddenly. And my parents adopted their 3 children, almost quite literally overnight. So I had 3 siblings, biological siblings to begin with. And, within a week, I went from having 3 siblings to 6 siblings, and also, realized very quickly, wow, life can disappear. Life can be gone just, like that. It literally can happen. You can have dinner with your kids and your dad one night, and the next morning, that's it. It's totally different world. So that really was my, life of, starting seminal why not now moment, where I realized, there might not be a now very shortly thereafter. And that led me through, quite honestly, a period of depression and searching and just trying to move very quickly to figure out who I wanted to be in life, given that, I saw this, I had this exposure to death at a relatively young age. So let's, fast forward about, 15 years from that point. I went to a great school for undergrad. I went to Dartmouth. I had an amazing experience there. I've always been entrepreneurial. So I decided to move to Indonesia. I started a microfinance nonprofit there right out of school. I came back. I did graduate school at Harvard. I did the Kennedy School of Government and the Business School joint degree. I took a detour and joined the Marine Corps, became an infantry officer reservist, and then moved back to New York, got married, and I found myself working a sales job that I was miserable, absolutely miserable. I went from living in the desert with a bunch of men, blowing things up and working on a big mission, to working on the 39th floor of a corporate office building in Lower Manhattan. And I just, every morning woke up and asked myself, what am I doing? How did I wind up doing this soulless thing that I am just not passionate about in the least? That led me down my entrepreneurial path that I've now been on for 10 years. And, that why not now basically led me to this place where, I always kind of come back to that 14-year-old me and saying, this next year is not certain. There might not be a next year. So are you really happy spending it? Are you okay spending it doing this thing that you fundamentally don't believe in, where you're not happy? Or is it better to go do something else? That was a hard period of time for me, actually, because I felt like I was in the desert somewhat, unsure what was coming next, without a clear objective. And I've always been very goal oriented. I've always had the next thing lined up, literally since the time I was 14. So here I was in my late 20s, and I didn't know what came next. There was no grad school on the horizon. There was no objective for me to run at. And that led to this 6-month period of, I think in the entrepreneurial world, you could say it was, rapid early stage iteration. But the reality was I was quite lost and searching and unclear about what was coming next. But, I think, that is clearly a period that a lot of people have to go through if you're going to go down this entrepreneurial path. And it can be incredibly uncomfortable and scary. and I'm happy to unpack all that. But that was my, why not now moment that, springboarded me into an entrepreneurial career and lifestyle.
And just the juxtaposition of imagining you in the desert, here you are, and then you're on the 39th floor. And was this a brewing thing that was just bubbling that one day there really was no, this is it. Like from a decision-making process, how did you justify this shift given everything had been so calculated? And like you said, you always had that next step. And then you did make that leap. And I really, obviously we want to dive into that. Did you just rely on your figure it out muscle? I mean, would you tell yourself?
Yeah. I mean, I wish it was a cleaner story, but it was actually very, very messy. And in some ways I had the decision made for me. Within 3 months of starting this new job, I knew that it was not the right fit. And instead of, making the right decision, the morally correct decision and, quitting that job, I started working on stuff on the side, right? Like so many people, right? But then pretty quickly that working on stuff on the side turned into me, working on stuff during my lunch break. And then, working on stuff while I was at the desk, while I was supposed to be working on my day job. Oh. And, I had the decision made for me when I was fired, right? When management found, a copy of a PowerPoint for a business plan that I was building on my work computer, bonehead move, right? Like, note of caution to anyone playing that side hustle game. Your side hustle can wind up sinking your main hustle. So, clearly in a COVID world, it's a bit different when you can have multiple computers and whatnot. But I basically got walked out of the office, and that was in early January 2012, and that was when that desert period really began. And I basically said, "Whoa, this is not good. This is a really low point for me, right? Doing something I really didn't believe in and kind of got smacked in the face with it." I distinctly remember walking back up the West Side Highway of Manhattan. There's a beautiful walking path that goes up the Hudson River. It was January. I didn't have a very thick jacket on. It was cold, wind blowing off the Hudson River, and just these cold waves sloshing against the pavement, splashing up, and just feeling like, wow, I really failed on this one. This really did not. I had no control over. I did have control, but I lost it, and just really failed myself and failed my morals, and just was not a good place mentally coming out of that before figuring out the next path forward.
Gotcha. Wow. Thank you for sharing that, because it's very real, and it'd be easy to gloss over the legit, what can really happen, the reality of the situations. I know my very first podcast guest 4 or 5 years ago was Mark Cuban, and he talked about getting fired and how it was his why not now very first job, right? And that was what kicked the entrepreneurial door open for him. And I think for sure that was an asset in disguise, that adversity, but it doesn't just all of a sudden you're walking down the Hudson River and you're just like, yeah, this is just an asset in disguise, right? This it's tough. So how long did it take for you to kind of, obviously I want to get to plated, I want to get to hot water, but this is such a critical portion of your path that I think people can relate to. I know I can. I was working in the NBA for the Phoenix Suns, and I was working on my side hustle in the dark arena where no one would see me, and it was lonely, and it was, I was probably going to get asked to leave. I decided to leave myself first, but it was right there, and that's just kind of the reality sometimes. So was there a turning point where you're like, no, this was a good thing? Like when you realize that?
I would say it didn't become a good thing for, a solid year and change before we launched Plated about 6 months after that. And then it was not clear that things were going to work for at least a solid 6 months, really arguably a solid year after that. So, but up until that point, I used that moment to really fire myself up. I really, I go just, use that as motivation to say, I can't go back there and I'm going to prove all those people wrong. Right. And prove that I'm also better than that to myself. Right. Maybe most importantly, I definitely used that feeling in that time as a motivator for a good chunk following that.
So when you'd wake up in the morning and that delta between Plated, has a very clear future and things winding up with your previous job, you're waking up in the morning and you're like, okay, what got you out of bed from what positive energy was there? Was it kind of pressing from a place to prove something?
It really was. Yeah. It was from again, I've always been majority internally motivated, and that's part of why that job just didn't work for me. I just didn't find the internal motivation there. But with this spark, it was mostly like, early stage entrepreneurship is for most people, it doesn't make sense on the outside, right? Okay, you're working on some crazy idea, like good luck with that, right? So you're not going to get a lot of external validation for a long kind So rather for me, it was that wake up in the morning, do 10 push-ups, think about my boss, kind of telling me to hit the road and, motivating myself to go and make sure that this next one was a big win.
We're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back. I'm hopping in here to tell you about a new discovery of mine. I'm in love, and let me tell you, I've fallen hard. We all like our caffeine in the morning. I look forward to that first, second, and fifth cup of coffee in the morning, but now I exclusively drink super coffee. I'm such a fan that I actually invested in the company, the team, and their culture. The love for what I do every day makes me jump out of bed in the morning, but super coffee truly fuels that fire. It's fueled with positive energy, from the ingredients they use to their brand promise. Super coffee removes the negatives like sugar and adds the positives like MCT oil and protein so that you can maximize your day. I have an embarrassing secret. I used to be addicted to diet soda. I'd roll out of bed and pop open a can before my eyes were even fully open. I had never been a huge coffee drinker, but when I gave up diet soda on July 12th, 2015, yes, the moment deserves an anniversary. It was a big deal. I needed another caffeine source at that point. For me, that meant coffee with lots of artificial sweeteners, with crazy ingredients I can't pronounce that made me crash by 2 p.m. or so. Well, not anymore. Super coffee is different. As I mentioned, there's no added sugar, and some of the flavors I love have 10 grams of plant protein. Now, I'm not a big meat eater, so this really helps, and they've just added a few new flavors to their plant-based offering, like French vanilla and sweet cream. They only use ingredients that are great tasting, great for you, and sustain you for the long haul. Nothing shady, only positives. The taste is delish, I can tell you. Take it from someone who needs that extra flavor to enjoy the taste of coffee. And super coffee also comes in ground coffee, Keurig pods, creamers, and more on their website, drinksupercoffee.com. One of the things my team and I love most is that on drinksupercoffee.com, you can shop Super Coffee's wide variety of products based on your dietary needs, including gluten-free, plant-based, Whole30, keto, or even vegan, right there on their website. There's something for everyone. While you're on the site, go ahead and stock up because Super Coffee is hooking up Why Not Now listeners with a 25% discount. Head to supercoffee.com and use the code Why Not Now for your 25% discount on all products. drinksupercoffee.com is the only place this offer is available, and your discount works again for all products. Just use Why Not Now as your code. All one word. There are no restrictions.
I'm an investor in Super Coffee because the founders truly do walk the talk. Yes, their coffee provides positive energy, but so does their company culture. Their founders are three brothers who share a work hard and be nice to people mentality, and they spread that throughout their culture at Super Coffee. They know the importance of having diverse perspectives at the leadership level. And you know, I'm a fan of elevating women in leadership. In fact, one of my Renegade Accelerator grads, Jamie Christ, is one of those women. So once that positive energy arrives on your doorstep, hit me up on social at Amy Jo Martin and show me what flavors and products you went with. And bonus points if you try one of their seasonal blends. The company is growing quickly, and you'll probably start noticing Super Coffee in your local Walmart, Target, or Costco. They are now in over 30,000 retailers nationwide. To take advantage of your exclusive 25% discount, head to drinksupercoffee.com and enter Why Not Now at checkout. That's Why Not Now, all one word. drinksupercoffee.com is the only place this offer is available, and your discount works for all products, no restrictions. I love that. You learned how to push your own buttons. I mean, I love what you just said. You're not going to get much internal validation for a long time. And it's so true. It's like, that is a huge quotable. You should tweet that later, Nick. That's a tweetable. Okay, so let's fast forward. So you're in the trenches. You're, obviously hustling. Plated takes off. And I shouldn't put words in your mouth. Obviously, this wasn't like an overnight, just you woke up one morning. But can you take us from there and kind of tell us the movie trailer from there to now and what you're up to now?
Yeah, absolutely. So, from walking on the cold banks of the Hudson River in January 2012.
The movie.
Yeah. So I teamed up with an amazing dude who's become a lifelong friend and really closer to a brother at this point. My buddy Josh, who I understand you met in a past life, and we spent 6 months figuring out what we were going to build together. Truly ideating and building stuff and failing fast until we landed on what would become Plated. And the movie trailer version is we went from the two of us on my couch on West 14th Street in Manhattan over the next 5 years to over 1,500 employees. We raised almost $100 million in venture capital. We shipped tens of millions of meals across the country. And the business model there for your listeners who aren't familiar is food e-commerce, meal kit e-commerce. So we were the first American meal kit company. We basically had digital catalog of recipes online that you could select. And then on the back end, we did everything, pre-portioning those recipes and the ingredients to make them. And then we delivered them directly to your home to make it convenient and affordable to make a great home cooked meal. And it's just a crazy business and industry. We ended up building over a dozen fulfillment centers, and most of our employees were working in those fulfillment centers. Just imagine, 39-degree refrigerated warehouse the size of 10 football fields, with people packing cumin into little packages, and salmon and basil and kale. So sorry, that's not part of the movie trailer, but
that's the legit. That's the real talk, right?
Yeah, we went from
part
and crazy war stories along the way, right? Like the mob in Chicago stealing thousands of pounds of our meat.
And this is pre Whole Foods, Amazon. Like this,
Yes.
You were figuring this out, right? This is supply chain management, distribution, innovation.
Totally.
Like OG. Let's just figure it out.
That's it. Guess we can't, put a pound of salmon in a box and just ship it to you. We got to put some insulation and coolant in there. And yeah, I mean, we invested in an insulation company. We built out our own fulfillment centers, did the whole thing. We had to build our whole, tech backbone from scratch. This was, pre-Spotify, not Spotify, pre-Spotify, but also pre-Shopify. So, wild journey, just building the whole thing and getting it to a place where in 2017, Albertsons, a big grocery retailer, bought us. And that was actually catalyzed by, Amazon Whole Foods. So Amazon bought Whole Foods in June of 2017, and that just sent the entire grocery market into chaos. Kroger, which is a publicly traded grocery store, saw their market cap cut by almost 30% in a couple of weeks. And every big grocery player was figuring out what their response was going to be. And that created a great opportunity for us in the marketplace. And we made our early investors at Plated over 20 times their money in under 5 years.
Mr. Wonderful still talks about that, by the way. I mean, wasn't he in that? I hear him referencing that to new pitches all the time. Well, let me tell you what about Plated. Isn't that fun? On Shark Tank.
We were on Shark Tank as part of our journey way early on. And Mr. Wonderful, Kevin O'Leary, got involved and was a great cheerleader for us over the years. Yeah, I mean, just an amazing storybook, entrepreneurial journey there. So, 2017 sold the business. About a year later, I moved out to Southern California, and been here since then. Got 2 young daughters and married. And while I was essentially like hanging out almost 2 years ago now, I just found myself drinking way too much beer. Quite honestly, I was having between 2 and 4 beers a day. And I've been a lifelong athlete and Marine, and I put on over 20 pounds in the span of a few months, and was not setting a good example for my daughters who are 6 and 4. And I realized that I had to make a change. This was just not a good habit to have. I looked out at the market to figure out what alternatives existed. And, quite honestly, I'd never had a non-alcoholic beer in my life up to that point. But I went out and I love the taste of beer and that celebration of cracking a cold one at the end of the day to kind of celebrate, demarcate the end of the working day going into the evening. But I couldn't really find what I wanted out in the market. Not, the non-alcoholic beers that are out there were high calorie, 80 to 100 calories per can, 16, 17 grams of carbs per can. Most of them don't taste that good. So, if you have three or 4 of those in an evening, you might as well have a chocolate brownie for dessert. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And so I couldn't find what I wanted. There's also no functional benefit to them. And, I'm a big health guy and fitness person. It just dawned on me that, look, there's an opportunity to go basically build the healthy alternative to beer and be that in the market. And that's what we're working on with Hop Water.
Yes,
so we.
Cheers.
Yeah, cheers. I should have one handy. I'm plugged into my headphones, but I feel bad letting you drink alone. So, Hop Water is it's a 0 calorie, 0 alcohol, 1 gram of carbs in there, 0 sugar. And the idea is we take hops, we brew them, we add some adaptogens and nootropics to help you unwind, de-stress. And our goal is to be the healthiest option in the beer aisle. So, it's been a transformational product for me in my own life. And we conceptualized this and built out the business plan pre-COVID, but, we ended up launching right in the middle of COVID. And it's quite honestly been a game changer for me during all this, working from home, living at home, everything at home, where I definitely found myself back in a place where during early COVID, I was having, oh, look, this will be a month of lockdown, Manhattan or 2 a day. That can't hurt, right? when that goes on for 2 months, it turns into a real problem, right? Yeah. So the Hop Water has been amazing. I actually just finished dry January, which I'd never done before, in full. So my alcohol consumption habits have completely changed since starting this business. We're not trying to say don't drink at all. Like, that's not our role to play. We're not trying to preach to anyone. but certainly, we felt it ourselves and our team that when you have, too much to drink, you just don't operate your best. You don't feel your best. And we wanted something. We've created something to help when you're looking for, a little bit more than another LaCroix at the end of a day. But where you don't really, you don't want the alcohol, you don't want the calories, you don't want all the downside. And we're super excited. We launched in September of 2020 officially, and it's just been a really, very clearly we found product market fit. So it's been a great start to this business.
We're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back. Being able to design my own day and do it in the most efficient way is a non-negotiable for me. I'm a bit of a time management nerd, so when I find something that allows me to be more efficient and effective to get the most out of my day, I want to share it with everyone. I want you to head to monday.com/AJM because here's the scoop. I have a new tool in my productivity tool belt, and it's called Monday. Monday.com. My team and I have never felt more organized, professionally and personally. And my to-do list is no longer the boss of me. I feel more in control because every project, initiative, date, task, they're all captured and organized in one place. And my team is in the loop and involved every step of the way. Monday.com/AJM is where you can find your brand new operating system. Everything has its own home, deadline. You can see the team members associated with the tasks, and it's even color coordinated, so you can easily navigate your own task list. It's amazing. So we all have multifaceted jobs, businesses, and lives. With Monday, you're able to keep all of these components organized in their own compartments. But you're also only one click away from seeing the big picture and how they all integrate together. Creating systems and procedures within your day in business saves a lot of time. For example, my team and I have a dedicated board for this very podcast. Did you know there are 28 steps involved in getting one podcast just to air? It's the same exact process every time, and it's a system. And we have the various key steps mapped out, and they're set up as tasks on our podcast board. And this allows for my team and I to stay in lockstep every step of the way. I've even noticed a decrease in emails and meetings since we started using Monday. So you can head to monday.com/AJM and check out how I use it. One feature I love is that my social media content calendar is built inside of monday.com. I finally have one that I actually use. I like it, and it's embedded into my overall calendar as well. Another feature we use every day is the Google Doc integration. You know I love a good spreadsheet. I can pull them into monday.com and edit them right there versus having 97 tabs open on my computer. If how we spend our days is how we spend our lives, then I can't think of anything more important than using the time in our days wisely. Head to monday.com/AJM to start your free trial today. That's monday.com/AJM, which is short for Amy Jo Martin, if that's how you need to remember it. And you'll see how I use it, what's in it for you, and that's where you get your free trial. So if you start using Monday, hit me up on social media. Let me know how you're using it, what your experience is like, and we can swap tips and tricks. I wish I had started using it sooner.
First of all, thank you, because as someone I've gone teetotaling before, like a year and a half, whatever. So I feel like a little bit of a connoisseur when it comes to alternatives, and I've tried a lot of things, even like a NA michelada and you name it. I've tried it. But I can say, as someone, first of all, mango is my favorite flavor. And this isn't just some...
So good, isn't it? I love the mango.
It is. I think of hops, and I think of just even the days of craft beer. And I know a lot of people around me, they enjoy the different types of amazing beer. And I've never been that person. I don't love it. However, I do love this. And I feel like it's such an awesome alternative to something that's, like you said, more than the LaCroix at the end of the day, but tastes good. So I was a little, I felt like, am I going to like this? Hops. And it doesn't feel hoppy to me. But what I love too is my family, we love to boat and wake surf. And last thing you want to be doing is be out there and drinking, right? But you love to have something and feel, it's a celebration. So this is such a rad solution to being active, being out there. And I don't know, I'm pretty jazzed. I'm hopped up on it.
We had this insight ourselves, Jordan, my co-founder and our CEO on this. We had that insight. And then as we did more early research, and I can talk more about our process there if you think that's helpful for your audience around how we went from
Well, I mean, and I didn't mean to cut you off, but one thing about you, Nick, is you have figured things out along the way in areas that you probably knew nothing about. Early on, you're investing in insulation companies so I think just the more you can talk about process in general and how you go from, hey, I don't know how to do this, to figuring it out is very valuable. So have at it.
I'm happy to unpack that. And I think even at the highest level, this is really the century for generalists. And I used to think that being a generalist was not the best thing, because you're taught in especially in college, you should focus, specialize. But what I've seen, especially now in this decade, is as there's more and more data out there, it's really, the people who can synthesize and cross-tabulate and look at a bunch of different industries and historical periods and people and perspectives and smush that all together and pop out the other side insights that other people haven't really discovered yet. So that's just kind of the way my brain works, right? As I read voraciously. I've always been a big reader, and I just find myself gravitating to a whole bunch of different subjects and people and philosophies and history as well. I think taking an insight and then figuring out, okay, is this just a crazy, a crazy thing that popped out of my brain, or does this actually have legs? Is where I really think that I can deliver a ton of value in the world. I'm never going to be the best, publicly traded Fortune 500 CEO, right? That's not the game that I am here to play, right? It's not what I was built for. But that phase of, what Peter Thiel calls 0 to 1, going from zany idea to figuring out what the product looks like, figuring out the value propositions, figuring out who you need around the table to bring it to life, capitalizing the idea to bring it to life. That's a skill set that capitalism rewards handsomely, but that I also think is just incredibly fun. Walt Disney has this quote where he said, we don't make movies to make money. We make money to make movies.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's the way I feel about business. If you're doing things that building businesses that you really enjoy, that create good in the world, it's just what an amazing thing to be able to spend your life doing. And unlike a professional athlete where you might have a 20-year career, Tom Brady might, we'll see with his bionic self how long he can go. But yeah, for sure. I mean, but in this game, you can play for 60, 70 years, which is just amazing. What an incredible way to spend a life. So, how I kind of think about going from this, okay, wake up in the middle of the night, got an idea that just kind of pops into my brain into, okay, does this actually have legs? That process, we really codified that with Hop Water, where you take that zany idea, you first run it by some people in your close circle to see if anyone who knows anything about the tangential space thinks it's remotely makes sense, right? If you check the box on that, and maybe even if you don't,
right.
you can then right? You can then go run some survey data, right? So there are survey tools out there these days, SurveyMonkey being one, where you can go and recruit a panel of, target customers for relatively cheap, well under $1,000, and get some real quant and qual data back from objective people who don't have, who don't know you, who aren't going to sugarcoat things, to again get a pulse check on whether you're in the realm of crazy or really crazy, right?
Which is insurance to a certain extent, right? On whether or not you want to experiment and let it ride a little further, or like, okay, maybe I should go back to the next idea.
Totally.
You're saving time and money.
Yeah. Then, and you can run this next step in parallel process to that survey step. There's this amazing tool called Facebook, right? And, despite, the division that it's caused in our society and around the world, it is, perhaps the most incredible marketing tool that's ever been created, where you can essentially, stand up a fake brand, a fake product, a whole bunch of value propositions, and for, dozens or hundreds of dollars, go out into the market and validate whether your thing makes sense. And this is all through the consumer lens, right? If we're talking B2B, it's a little bit more, it's a different path. But within a couple of weeks, you can go from idea to having a pretty good pulse check on whether like that idea makes sense for a broader realm, or whether like you should probably just, go back to the drawing board. That's what we did with Hop Water, and with each step along the way, continued to validate that there was demand. And I guess the step of the process that we didn't discuss was the business modeling behind it, right? To make sure that if the customer is willing to buy $1 for 90 cents, it's not a very good business, right? So to make sure that there's an actual business model, believable business model to be built to support whatever product you're thinking about. And that's what we ran over a period of 6 months for Hop Water, and validated, really pre-launch, that we had something that was going to be a winner.
I appreciate you giving tangible steps and things people can be doing at that phase and stage. Like, you can literally take these tactical steps. I think about what you said about this is a century for the generalists, and that just makes so much sense. And I probably 5, 6, maybe 10 years ago, I remember everyone in Silicon Valley saying, we want to hire fresh eyes. We want people out of the Bay Area. We want fresh eyes that don't even know that much about tech, because we're in our own echo chamber here. And would you say that, people who maybe don't have a template for how things have always been done can have an upside, have an advantage? I see so many innovative, concepts coming out, and oftentimes you hear, I didn't really have any experience in the beverage industry or the whatever industry. And is that become a competitive edge for innovation?
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting question, right? Because there's certainly two very different approaches, right? One is, look, I've been in this industry for 10 or 20 years, and I see this problem that I can solve that others within the industry aren't already working on. Mm-hmm. The other approach, which is what we did with both Plated and Hop Water, is like, look, I know nothing about this industry, but this just intuitively makes sense to me, and it's been overlooked. Yeah, I think both approaches work equally well, but I think certainly with Plated, if we knew how tough the industry was and how hard that business model was going to be to successfully build, we would never would have started.
Like ignorance was bliss. Yeah,
for sure. So that ignorance and naivety about what a business looks like can actually be a competitive advantage if you're willing to just put your head down and smash through whatever walls present themselves.
Yeah, and then the big dynamic too right now of the customer journeys changing, obviously with the pandemic in the last year, but also our behavior is shifted a bit. And I just think about alcohol consumption in general through the last year plus. So those are pretty big factors that can start to amplify, I guess, and accelerate too. I have a few rapid fire questions for you if you're game.
Yeah,
Okay.
for sure. Let's do it.
All right. Pirates or ninjas? Who's tougher and why?
Oh, pirates, because they're I was trying to come up with a funny line. My kids have been hitting me with these jokes nonstop, and there's so many good pirates jokes. But I was, pirates because they've arrived.
There you go. Okay, I love it.
That's a horrible response.
Dad jokes. I can tell you, my husband, we have a 22-month-old, and he just loves the fact that he now gets to be a consumer of dad jokes. Well, I'm the consumer, the publisher. Let's talk productivity really quickly. So you have a very decorated career. You've done a lot of things, not to mention the 82 miles you once ran in one. Like, I read about that and I'm just like, what? Incredible. How do you stay focused? Like, when you think about productivity in your day, do you have a top time management tip?
I live and die by my calendar. I mean, I don't use fancy tools like Asana or Jira, but if it's not on the calendar, it's not getting done. And that includes family stuff, right? Dinner time, soccer practice on the weekends, right? Just, my wife and I try to be really good about putting stuff on each other's calendars. And it's not fancy, but like a 30-minute block, need to build a PowerPoint. If it's not on there, it's just going to get shunted and shunted and shunted. So it's my, if you have a better one, I'd love to know, but, what do you do?
No, yeah, it's funny. One of our marketing partners is Monday.com, which is a tool that it honestly has changed the game for my team and I. But my husband and I, we just went on a road trip we were COVID campers. We got an RV and went on the road for a few months, and we planned our whole trip in Monday, like every campground, like all the details, just so it was in one place and you can integrate spreadsheets. And I'm a big data spreadsheet girl. So anyway, but no, what gets scheduled gets done. I'm with you. You can't hope something's going to get done. That's not a strategy, but that's good. That's good. Thank you for sharing that. Even the personal stuff, which I think oftentimes gets missed. And that leads me to my next question. How do you invest in yourself?
This might be an odd answer, but I discovered fasting a few years ago. And I feel like, I've done 3 5-day water fasts now. And whenever I finish that, I did my last one in January at the start of the year. It's the biggest investment I can make in myself by like an order of magnitude, I find.
What's the ROI? Like, what do you see as the upside? What are some of the benefits?
Ton of additional energy coming off the fast, much less sleep. I find like I typically need like 8 to 9 hours, but once I've fasted, and especially while fasting, I find that drops down to like 5 or 6. And I don't know the science behind that, but I've seen that now these 3 times I've done it, and that trails off after a month or 2. But the body just gets used to perhaps like using less energy. I'm going to go do some homework on like the science behind why that's correlated. Like just emotionally and mentally stronger, just like knowing that I can do tough stuff and like it'll be okay, right? In society today, when you can literally click a button and get essentially anything you need for survival and then some delivered to your door almost instantaneously, it's just like really good to know that like you can go 5 days with just water and be fine. You're not going to die. You're not going to like collapse. You might feel a little crummy at some times, but like it's just very empowering, I find. And I always come off those 5-day water fasts just feeling like super charged up, super disciplined, and like very clear on like what I should be focusing on. Very
cool. That's interesting. I want to research more as well. And do you drink hot water when you fast?
I do. Yeah. I used a lot of hot water. Well, I actually limited myself to 1 a day in the evening. That was like my treat. And then towards on day 4, I was struggling a bit this year. So I added some apple cider vinegar in there and a little bit of sea salt, which was after 4 days of not tasting anything, it was great. But yeah, that was my hack to get through.
So you've been able to cross paths with some pretty fascinating people along your journey. And who do you look to? Who comes to mind when you think of like a professional why notter, like a total renegade, just someone who could get an Olympic medal in why notting?
I mean, there's obviously Elon Musk, right? Who'll go down, perhaps in history as like one of the greatest why notters.
Yeah.
I've also, I got really interested in the crypto world, Bitcoin and blockchain back in 2017. I've been following that world very closely since then.
I saw your tweets about it back in tweeting about it. Yeah.
I just think it's a fascinating, I think it's the next evolution of the internet, moving to this more decentralized world where we don't have these corporate monopoly gatekeepers. And I think the amount of innovation that we're already seeing and what's going to come over the next decade is just going to, I think we're completely underestimating what's going to happen globally here. And that the space is just filled with why notters, people who don't come from traditional backgrounds. A lot of them are young, teens, 20s, and say like, this part of the world just doesn't make sense. Like, why don't I just figure out a better way to build it? And it happens at the speed of technology. It's just super exciting.
Yeah. The no geographic boundaries, speed of technology. Yeah. It's pretty, it's sometimes it's hard to even wrap your mind around.
It for sure is. Like some of the stuff that's happening, in at the bleeding edge of crypto is really like way beyond my depth.
Yeah.
But the fact that global finance is essentially being rewritten right now, it's really, really fascinating.
Yes. Okay. So final question here, Nick. So when we started at the top of this conversation, you mentioned, when you were 14, there was quite a bit of disruption in your world and you had a new view to a certain extent. If you were to go back to your 14-year-old self and say something, give a little bit of wisdom or anything at all, what would it be?
Old Bob Marley quote, don't worry, be happy. I've definitely gone through like mega periods of depression and anxiety in my life, and it's just not worth it. It's hard to internalize that message when you're going through one of those troughs. But life is too short, right? And don't worry, just try to be happy, right? I think that's the big one that I need to continue to remind myself.
That's a great place to wrap up. And I appreciate your time and sharing your wisdom. And, we'll be following along the journey, and just thank you.
Awesome. Amy, so great chatting with you. Really, really, really enjoyed it.
Hey everyone, thanks for listening to the show. Hit me up on social media to let me know what you think. I'm at Amy Jo Martin on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And I want to hear your why not now moments so I can share them on the show. Just send me a note to whynotnow@amyjomartin.com. For show notes and other offers, you can visit amyjomartin.com/whynotnow. And while you're there, don't forget to sign up for my email newsletter for exclusive content and announcements. A big thanks to Rock Salt Music for all of the tunes by the talented John Coggins. And of course, a hat tip to Richard Brewer for editing and producing the show. I'll see you next time. And until then, why not now?